Yes, people, what's happening? Welcome back to the channel and welcome to your daily transfer update and another live stream. Big up to everyone that's locked in over on Chelsea Fan TV as well. And it's been a reasonably busy day on Chelsea news. Not too much going on yesterday, but today Chelsea have actually signed another player. Not really, I don't think anyone's really heard of him, but Chelsea have completed the signing of 18-year-old Brazilian forward from Santos, Angelo. Don't really know too much about him, but he's going to sign a contract until 2029. So we'll get into that. Another youth talent signed up, probably going to go out on loan to Strasbourg. But yeah, we'll get into that kind of that policy there. Chelsea and Man United are set to meet for crunch talks over Mason Mount, with his future set to be decided this week. So let's wait and see what happens in that saga. There's also reports coming out of Spain that Chelsea could be looking to go in for Barcelona midfielder Frank Kessie, which would be an interesting one. Obviously, Callum Hudson-Odoi, interest from AC Milan, Fulham and Nottingham Forest. Chelsea wanting around £15 million for him. And then obviously Chukwuemeka, Selena and Amari Hutchinson are deciding their futures in terms of are they going to go out on loan or fight for a space in the first team. So there's plenty to get into, people. As I said, make sure you smash the likes on both streams, subscribe to both channels if you haven't done so already. I'll try and get through as much as I can in the chat, but if you want to guarantee that your comment gets read out, then please do use the super chat function. Any donation is greatly appreciated by either channel. So if you want to guarantee your comment gets read out, then do use that function. Nina, thanks for coming as always, massively appreciated. How are you feeling about Chelsea's transfer business at this point in time? Obviously, we're coming towards the end of June. Most of the outgoings are done. There's a few more we can get through, but are you kind of happy with where we're at, where the club are at this point in time?
Yeah, definitely. I think we got down to business quickly. I mean, 30th June is kind of a couple days away, and we wanted to get those outgoings straight out the door as quickly as possible. And it seems that that's what's happened, you know, some being around 5 in a day as well, which is crazy to think. But yeah, no, I'm quite happy with how things are going, because I said the number one priority is getting players out the door first, and then obviously addressing respective areas after that. So I think we've gone about it in a very rational way. There's not been really, well, of course, there's always funky business at Chelsea, but there's not really been anything that's been that shocking. Obviously, some will argue the Mason Mount saga as well. But yeah, a lot of very things that make sense, you know, outgoings such as kind of Loftus-Cheek, you know, Mendy, obviously Koulibaly as well didn't quite work out, and Ziyech as well, another player, should have been out last season. But it's great to see that those kind of business deals are happening as quickly as they are, and it seems that we've got a right kind of to-do list that is very chronological, which I'm quite happy about. Yeah,
it's quite refreshing to see from a Chelsea perspective that we actually seem to have a plan in the transfer market for once, rather than just kind of, you know, just doing whatever, signing whoever's kind of good at this point in time without giving it any thought as to whether they're going to fit in or if they're the right characters for the club. At least it looks like we've got a plan now. Whether you like the plan is a different conversation, but there seems to be a clear plan. We seem to have clear targets in mind, the route that we want to go down. And obviously, not all these players will work out, but I think the idea behind signing the youngsters, because I see a lot of people in the chat are like, oh, another pointless youngster signed, what are we doing? Well, obviously the plan is to kind of secure some of the best young talent around the world, and then obviously develop that ourselves, or develop it, you know, through Strasbourg or whoever it might be. And then if some of them work out, we've picked up some decent players for cheap. And if it doesn't work out, then we can sell on for a profit. Like it's twofold. It's twofold, this situation, because they're not all going to work out, but they're going to be young enough and of a good enough quality where we can sell these guys on. But yeah, Chelsea have signed Angelo today from Santos. I mean, I don't expect anyone to know too much about it. If anyone in the chat knows anything about Angelo, then please do chip in. But I mean, you know, what are your thoughts on kind of this approach that we're going for in terms of like signing up a lot of youngsters? And I know people thinking, oh, we can sign this guy, why haven't we got to move him with Caicedo? Like, you can work on more than one deal at the same time. This has probably been going on for a long time. I know it's kind of just appeared out of nowhere now, but this has been going on for a while. So I guess, yeah, another youngster, and I guess we see what happens. Like, do you like the idea of us signing all these youngsters, or you'd like us to see us sort of do a different kind of way of operating?
I feel like with the new kind of regime that we're trying to build at Chelsea, I feel like this is one of the kind of number one things is like recruiting kind of young, talented players that are kind of shining in different leagues across the world, you know, obviously as far as Brazil and stuff. And I think that obviously you mentioned the ideology behind that, obviously sending them out on loan, monitoring how they obviously kind of improve and play in different leagues, and of course in more competitive ones at the end of the day as well. So for me, I don't have an actual issue with that. I think that the direction is obviously a positive one, and you know, the ownership have made it very clear that we are looking for the long term, and we want to be bringing in players that will kind of potentially form a backbone at Chelsea. And I'm not saying that it will be these youngsters, but at the end of the day, from like a financial aspect as well, with if we have to sell them in future. And I think with a player like Angelo Santos as well that we signed earlier, I think he was wanted by a lot of clubs as well, and obviously we took that into consideration. He's a Chelsea player now, so how he unfolds, whether we send him out on loan, obviously he is going to also have a pre-season at Chelsea as well, so Poch gets to see that as well, with all these younger players as well. But like I said, we're building a future around the younger players. If you have a look at most of the signings that we brought in, most of them are not older than 22, 23. You know, the likes of even Enzo Fernandez, who's still quite a young player as well, but has still got a World Cup up his sleeve already. And what we are looking at Chelsea nowadays is potential. And you see it in the likes of Madueke and Mudryk as well. I'd argue that they're young and fresh prospects as well, you know, yet to be worked with. So I see the idea behind it. I definitely do. And I personally don't really have an issue with it. It's good for business. It's good for, obviously, Strasbourg. We got in aspect to actually be able to send these players out on loan, and we can obviously monitor them very closely. So, like I said, there seems to be like a chronological way of doing things, and us signing these younger players is making sense, because then we do get to kind of loan them out if we need to, or if they do impress Pochettino in pre-season, then when we've clearly got, you know, a couple players there that might be making the starting 11 as well next season. So yeah, it's interesting for sure.
Look, I get people's concerns about the academy, and then people saying, "Oh, what's the point of the academy if we're just going to go and sign like a load of youngsters?" Like, I get that to a degree, but ultimately, at a club like Chelsea, you know, there's always going to be massive competition. And if you're good enough, you'll get minutes to play. And you know, Cobham is very good; it produces very good players. But ultimately, like, you're not going to, each age group that comes through is not always going to be amazing. You know, some age groups are going to be a lot better than others. Like, obviously, when we had Mount, Reece, Tammy, and all those guys come through together, not every year is going to be amazing. You know, Lewis Hall has kind of come through recently. There's a few talented kids in the academy, but each year is going to be different. And ultimately, you know, we're not the only club that's looking to secure the best young talent around the world and in Europe. So it's not that we're not using the academy, and I can understand why some of the academy boys might look at it and think, "Well, hang on a second, what's the point of me being here if we're just going to go and sign all the best youngsters from around the world?" But ultimately, you know, Cobham is good; it's developed players, but the use of the academy is twofold. It's to bring players through that could be good enough for the first team, but it's also to make a profit as well, because not every player that's produced from the academy is going to be good enough for Chelsea. But they're definitely good enough to go and play at another Premier League team or go and have a very good career in Europe somewhere. So it is twofold. So I don't buy into this idea that, you know, oh, this is like ruining the academy vibe, because I don't think it is. And again, not all these guys are going to work out either. But from a business perspective, it's smart. It's low risk, high reward. It's not a lot of money. 15 million euros, probably about 12 million pounds roughly. And, you know, at 18 years of age, even if in 2, 3, 4 years time, whatever it is, some of these guys don't work out, they've got resale value and they're young enough still with at least 10 years of their career left to go and be a success somewhere else. So I look at a lot of these signings and I think this is kind of what people have been asking Chelsea to do for a long time, is to secure young, talented players before they become big names or established stars elsewhere and then become like a 60, 70, 80 million pound player. And, you know, it's the sort of thing that if Brighton were doing this, or if Brentford did it, or whoever did it, like, these are great signings. Why don't bigger clubs do what these clubs are doing? And then we do it, and it's like, oh, well, it's another pointless youngster. Like, there does need to be a balance, you know, between, of course, you need players that are kind of ready to make an impact now. You need players that are going to contribute to you winning now, because ultimately at Chelsea and at the top clubs, it's about winning as soon as possible. But it's also, football's unique in a way where you've got to like get results short term, but you've got to think long term. So this is thinking long term, but I also get the point that this perhaps isn't immediately addressing the short term either. I mean, It's a tricky one. It is a tough one. Like age doesn't always equal experience either. This is another thing that people don't understand. Age is not experience. This guy's 18, but he's played over 100 senior games for Santos already. Now I know it's a Brazilian top flight, and the quality might not be amazing or whatnot, but the Copa Libertadores, the Brazilian Champions League, is decent, a decent enough level. Enzo Fernandez came from South America at River Plate. I know it's Argentina, but these countries do produce good footballers, and to play over 100 games with Santos is not bad. I mean, what are your thoughts on kind of the experience route and stuff? And when people kind of go on about, we need to sign more experienced players, like, and that we should be signing like people that are 26, 27, 28 just for experience. At the end of the day, like, quality for me is much more important than experiences.
No, yeah, I agree. And I think experience is a very kind of umbrella term. How do you define experience? Does it mean, you've played across several different leagues and you've got experience, that sort of experience? Does it mean that you've started every single game, of your respective league? Is that experience? Does it mean that, it's a lot of things. It's a mixture of things. And you could look back and argue that we bought Koulibaly in for experience, for example. Would you say that you saw that experience there a lot of the time when he was in the Prem? Because, there were times when a lot of our youngsters outshone Koulibaly in that defensive line as well. So yes, of course, we knew him to be a brilliant defender and we brought him in for that. But then experience didn't necessarily mean that he was that good player there for us. So I get what you mean. It's not necessarily, and it doesn't also mean leadership either. It doesn't also mean that you can exert leadership there as well because you have more experience. So what is that? There is a lot of kind of young players that bring that in as well and actually spreads a lot of energy and have a lot more to work for as well. So I don't necessarily think that is everything, but at the end of the day, though, if you do define it as being kind of playing across several different clubs and, you can adapt, essentially, that's an important word as well. You can adapt to different situations and play in different teams with different structures and systems, etc. Then, yeah, from that aspect, cool. But like you said, this young player has played 100 games. What you said, 100 games for his club, right?
Santos, yeah.
For Santos, yes. And of course, with that, you get consistency. See, that's the thing that we haven't seen at Chelsea as well. So if you can argue that consistency is a lot more important than experience, if I can say like that, because then, you've already been a regular starter there. You've come into games and you know what the standard is each time, and you don't get to have that break of pattern or break of form because you're being benched the next game as well. So actually, that's a really good quality to be bringing into a team as well. And I think that's one of our biggest issues that Chelsea has been for the past few seasons as well, is consistency. And obviously that is something that we're going to trust that Poch will bring into the team as well, because we said, none of the managers that we had, Potter, Lampard, could work out where anyone plays and how anyone fits. That's why we rotated so aimlessly. That is why we threw in such different lineups where one did not even match for the next 20 or wouldn't even come close to. So I think that consistency is actually something that we should be striving a lot more. So yeah, why not look at that quality as opposed to experience? Because like we saw, experience doesn't always guarantee winning. It doesn't always guarantee good performances. So yeah.
Yeah, no, it's a fair point. Experience is twofold anyway. Like, you're looking at experience in terms of leagues played, you're looking at experience from an age perspective in terms of amount of appearances he's made. But arguably, like, the more important type of experience is your experience in the big moments. Have you got experience in big games? You've got the experience of winning big trophies. And ultimately, like, Chelsea have been down the route of signing experienced pros. We know that a lot of, the good CVs behind them in their careers to date. And a lot of them haven't worked out. So who's to say that why would this route not potentially work out? What we've been doing so far hasn't really worked out, in terms of signing big names, spending big money on players. Yes, we still spend big money on certain players, like an Enzo Fernandez, for example. But, generally, the experienced signings haven't tended to work out that well at Chelsea. So why not try something a little bit different and kind of see how we get on that route? I mean, just on this, Angelo, by the way, he broke into the Santos first team at the age of 16. He was playing in the under 20s at 15 years of age, and he's the youngest goal scorer in the history of the Copa Libertadores, which is the South American Champions League. But it's a little bit of a little scout report on him from who's this from? Yeah, this is from like a Brazilian account. So he's a left-footed winger, over 100 appearances for Santos whilst 18. He's a smooth dribbler, great close control, elite first touch, uses his body well for feints and deception. He's got a very good 1v1 threat, good vision to find through balls or crosses from all zones for line-breaking passes, but guilty of keeping his head down with dribble-first mentality. His right foot isn't useless. He heavily favours his left, makes him more predictable, especially in the box when seconds matter as he shifts to his left foot. Again, can be coached. Overall, high ceiling, raw talent, fitting well with Chelsea's new recruitment strategy. Probably a great candidate for a Strasbourg loan to help him develop. Needs minutes to keep improving. Could potentially be world-class one day. I mean, look, I don't know. I think this could be all right. Ultimately, we're not going to know whether this is going to be any good for at least a couple of years, because they'll obviously do pre-season at Chelsea and then they'll probably go out on loan somewhere. Could be loaned back to Santos, could be loaned somewhere in Europe. I think it doesn't really make sense. If he's already played over 100 times for Santos, doesn't really make much sense to loan him back to the Brazilian league, probably Strasbourg or somewhere else that may take him. But yeah, that's another signing through the door. So of the two signings that we have made, obviously Jackson and Angelo, a couple of signings. Wasn't really expecting a Chelsea player to be signed today, but here we go, another youngster through the doors. But let's move on from Angelo. I just wanted to very quickly touch on Edouard Mendy. It's been obviously officially, his move to Al Ahly has been officially confirmed now by both clubs, and he actually had a really nice leaving message for.
I haven't seen it. What is it? I
haven't seen it. I'll put it on the screen now. A really nice leaving message. I think this is it. Yep. Basically saying that as I prepare to begin a new chapter in my career, it's hard to say goodbye. It's been an incredible 3 years wearing the Chelsea jersey, during which we achieved great success, including winning Champions League, Super Cup and Club World Cup. I want to thank Roman, Marina, Petter, Christoph and the entire staff who made it possible for me to represent this prestigious club. I am thankful to my coaches and all the staff for the invaluable lessons and growth I experienced. Special thanks goes to all my teammates for the unforgettable journey we shared together. I also want to extend my deep gratitude to all the fans for their unbelievable support throughout my time at Chelsea. Although it's time to turn a new page, I sincerely wish the club continued success with the new owners and numerous titles in the years to come. Nice thing to say. Always kind of acted respectfully and stuff, Mendy. It's a shame that it did work out, but then it kind of fell off a cliff. And I guess it was best for all parties for him to sort of move on. But I mean, now that he's officially gone, how do you view Mendy's time at Chelsea?
Yeah, I feel like it's very easy to kind of let kind of the last season and obviously the kind of whole injury situation and then not being able to work his way up as number one keeper. It's really easy to let that kind of overthrow and overshadow the really good moments. And that's obviously flashback to when he joined us. I mean, arguably those first couple seasons were his best. His Champions League campaign as well was fantastic. I mean, how much could we praise him more on that? And, you know, UEFA Goalkeeper of the Year doesn't just get given to, you know, any keeper. You know, Mendy deserved that, and he well and truly worked his socks off for that award. So, you know, it's great. You know, that photo that I'm thinking about now where it's two cool Jorginho, Kante and Mendy, and now it's just like a black and white photo. Yeah, that's just what popped into my head now. But yeah, no, for me, I don't have any like sour, like really negative feelings towards Mendy. I would say respectively, it was a fall from grace and it was perhaps a very quick decline, and it was quicker than I anticipated. But like we know, there's many players in their careers where one injury really does have a kind of everlasting impact on their kind of football. And that was like the case with Mendy. And we saw, I think when he came, he started that game against Nottingham Forest at home, where we drew 2-2. And then that first goal he conceded after not even playing for so long. And we just thought, well, there you have it. You know, it's never going to be the same. And for me, that was truly probably an eye-opening moment where I thought, you know, we're never going to have that Mendy again. And, you know, it's like, well, both kind of keepers had a strength that the other didn't and vice versa. And I guess that's how keepers work. But that's why they kind of both became so mid as well, is because one was trying kind of to do what the other did, and it didn't quite work out. But like I said, I don't have negative feelings towards Mendy. I am happy that we have sold him because I just feel like it was time, and I feel like there would have been no even like point in trying to sponge out anything for next season if Mendy had stayed. For me, that ship has sailed, and you know, we always knew that Mendy had his weaknesses anyway, and a lot of the times we were exploited for that, you know, giving the ball away with stupid footwork when you could just, you know, clear it out and look up, get it cleared. But make it make sense, not just giving it away like he did, I think, to Karim Benzema as well when he scored for that 3-1 as well. So there's a lot of moments where we've conceded goals where we shouldn't have. It's one thing to be shit and be conceding goals, but it's another thing to be giving them away on silver platters. And frankly, you can't really rely on a goalie like that to be able to get you out these games, keep you clean sheets, and keep your net free. So yeah, for me, it was the right move. And I wish him all the best. I think he's going to be very kind of happy in his new team, and hopefully he gets the value that the respect he deserves at the end of the day. I think he does deserve respect.
Yeah, I mean, he's a Champions League winning goalkeeper. He's been a UEFA Goalkeeper of the Year. So yeah, I mean, he's not done badly for himself, but yeah, it's kind of weird how it's all ended so quickly. But that's football. It's what happens sometimes. Wish him all the best. And we obviously need to find ourselves a new goalkeeper, which kind of segues quite nicely into the goalkeeper conversation. Because in the last few minutes, there's been a little bit of news, nothing massive, but there's, according to Nizar Kinsella in the Standard, there's no imminent replacement for Edouard Mendy. Mauricio Pochettino is happy to work with Kepa. Now, obviously, it depends. Do we go for a new number one? Do we go for a number two? And then work out a number one in a year's time, and the goalkeeping market might be a little bit different. I've talked about Kepa quite a lot on here, but we'll chat about him again. I know there's a lot of Kepa haters in the chat, but it's cool. I don't mind. What are your thoughts on the situation here? Because I think Kepa gets disrespected in terms of it's not. Look, I'm not saying he's the best keeper going. I'm not saying that he's good enough to win the Premier League for Chelsea as a title-winning goalkeeper or winning the big trophies. But he's a lot better than people make out. The way some people go on about him, it's like he's playing fucking Sunday League. Like, he's not awful. Like, we can, look, if we had to have him for another season, like, it's not the end of the world. I'd much rather have Kepa for one more season and spend more money in midfield and up front rather than just splashing money on a goalkeeper for the sake of it, because we need to get a new one. It's better to be smart and wait rather than just bring one in for the sake of it. But I mean, how would you feel if Kepa was number one for next season?
Yeah, no, I completely agree with you on that front. I also have the kind of, I'd say, controversial opinion on Kepa, because I know that kind of the majority of the fan base has a very negative, we need to sell Kepa, we got rid of Mendy, Kepa needs to go as well, we need another keeper. And for the long run, I absolutely agree with that. For the long term, Kepa's not a goalie that we can work around for the future. His time at Chelsea will come to an end as well. However, I just believe that we've got, two positions above the goalkeeping one that are a lot more important in this transfer window. And also, my argument with Kepa is, like, if we're talking about experience, right? We're talking about experience in this stream, right? So Kepa's obviously had enough kind of appearances in the Chelsea shirt as a goalie. He's been in penalty shootouts more times than he can count. So if you want to talk about experience and kind of knowing the team and being able to navigate players from the back, yeah, he's not the kind of the shoutiest leader. He's not the most vocal, but we've seen him in games kind of navigating players, moving them around, and he shows, kind of that aggression as well there. But the point I'm going to make is I totally agree that we shouldn't just go away and try and bring in any goalkeeper just for the sake of not wanting Kepa there, because I feel like that's a wrong move. We don't actually, although there are names in there, we don't actually have a keeper that we have really, really wanted and envisioned for a long time now. It would be very different if we did. But like I said, I don't really want us spending crazy heaps of money on a goalie that perhaps is going to be quite young as well. And there's nothing wrong with that. We are going to probably bring in a young keeper. But my point is that this season, we're going to have so many young players that are trying to integrate themselves into this squad. We're going to have a pretty young back line as well, you've got to consider. It is quite risky if you bring in also a new kind of young goalie into this new team and we're starting pretty much from scratch. I just feel like if we are talking about experience, Kepa being there might make the integration a little bit easier just for this season alone. And it means that, we kind of get to focus on our attacking and goal scoring issues as well. It's not to say that we're not going to concede silly goals as well with Kepa there, because he's shocking sometimes as well. But like I said, I would rather stick with Kepa this season, and obviously Pochettino thinks that is the better decision as well, and then address that in the next window perhaps, or the window after, and just make sure that it is the right keeper. Because how many times have we gone off and done something just because we want to get rid of the player now, and it hasn't quite made sense. It's not been quite well thought out. And at the end of the day, a new goalie isn't going to be at a cheap cost either. So we've got to take that into consideration as well. So just for financial reasons and obviously experience, I keep saying it like this because we've kind of discussed that different definition a little bit there, but I just feel like Kepa in goal for 1 year isn't going to be so bad, especially when you think like, what are our priorities next season? We're not challenging for the title. We're not even like pushing for top 2 or 3, like top 4. Yeah. Champions League football. Yeah. So I think from that aspect, Kepa could probably get us there. I don't know. But yeah, like I said.
What people don't realise as well is that like I'm fully aware that Kepa's not good enough to be long-term goalkeeper number 1 at Chelsea. That's obvious. Like that doesn't need explaining. But what people aren't understanding is that like he wasn't the reason we were shit last year. We were shit last year.
Yeah, thank you.
The attack was fucking dreadful. Kepa was probably in our top 2 or 3 performers. And I know the bar was quite low, but in terms of performances, but him and Thiago Silva were probably the 2 standout performers last season. Kepa wasn't the reason that we were shit last year. People seem to think that, you know, Kepa was the reason why we lost so many matches and stuff. Like Chelsea aren't going to win the Premier League this season. We're not going to win. We're nowhere near challenging. Like people need to realize that yes, the expectation's always a challenge for the big stuff, but we aren't gonna win anything big next season. We might get a domestic cup maybe. And you know, Kepa's good enough to win a cup competition. Like that's not up for debate. And ultimately, you know, Kepa's not holding Chelsea back in terms of performing well as a team. Like it's not like, you know, he plays shit every single week. Like for one more season, this isn't really I don't see this as a big problem. Like it really isn't a big deal. You know, it's the same. Like if Pochettino assesses Kepa in pre-season, which he will do because he's going to make his own mind up on the player, and if he decides that Kepa's right for him and he wants to work with him and he thinks he's the right goalie for the club, then as fans we have to get behind that, whatever our thoughts are. But the way some people are going on is like it's like me or you in goal. It is kind of mad. Like he's not that bad. You know, he's not that bad. And
you're right though, and we would have conceded so many more goals. I feel like there's genuinely like a good double-digit number of goals conceded more. Like that is how bad it was. That is how terrible it was. Like flashback to Aston Villa away, even when we got thrashed by Man United, Brentford at home. There are at least like 3 more goals in each of those games.
I think Brighton at home as well, and we lost 2-1. If it wasn't for him, that would have been like 4 or 5 or 6. Like, you know, look, people are going to have different opinions, and that's fine. Football's opinions, agree to disagree, and all that. But like, it's for me, like Kepa is nowhere near as bad as loads of people make out. I'm basically just not having it. Like it's not like he's not that bad. So look, this is not disastrous, by any stretch. And ultimately, you know, Poch could be good for Kepa maybe. You know, Kepa knows the goalkeeping coach, I think it's called Tony Jimenez, knows him very well. I think they've worked in the Spanish national team or something together. So he's going to be working with people that he knows. Pochettino, like, if he thinks he's good enough and he wants to work with him, let's just give it a chance. This is not like this is a priority to sort out, but it's not the main priority. It's not like, yes, you know, we had 3 priorities this summer: midfield, striker, and goalkeeper. But goalkeeper's at the bottom of that list of priorities. So, you know, if we stick with him for 1 more year, so be it. Of course, we need to get a new goalkeeper. But I mean, who would you like to see as a new goalkeeper? Because you know, the links are kind of dried up a little bit. We've got obviously we've been linked with Onana at Inter. Kind of that seems to have gone a little bit cold. United interested in him as well. We've also been linked with Manyan, but I'm not sure how likely a move is for him. And then we've obviously there's been links with Mamardashvili, the Georgian keeper at Valencia, Diogo Costa at Porto as well. They'd be quite expensive. He's got about €75 million release clause. What are your thoughts on the keeper situation? Who would you like to see come in?
I was particularly keen on Onana, to be fair, when we were in talks for some time. But with me, like, I watched him very closely in the Champions League final as well. And what really impressed me about him was his aggression, if you like, and just the way that he wasn't taking nothing. I feel like that is quite a good quality to have in a keeper in terms of kind of if we're talking about like leadership and kind of starting out play from the back as well, that is quite a nice quality to have. And I'm pretty sure he did push someone as well, which I thought was quite funny as well. But he seems like a rising young keeper. He seems like he's someone that could potentially adapt to the Prem. I feel like he could cause problems, and I feel like he's one of those keepers that can perhaps get into players' minds as well, which is, again, another advantage to have as a keeper. So, yeah, I think... Was Mignan not quite happy at his club? Is that what the news is going on right now, or is he quite comfortable? Because
no, I think well, basically, like, I think it was almost impossible to get him, and then obviously Milan sacked their directors in Maldini. I can never remember the other geezer's name, but they basically sacked their sporting directors, and that kind of upset a few senior players like Rafael Leao, like Mignan, and Chelsea's kind of maybe looking to capitalise on that a little bit and try something opportunistic with him. But I still think that's pretty unlikely.
And they wanted quite a bit for Anana. What was the price? Was it like 60?
Anana, they're looking for like sort of 50, 60 million euros. Like, Italian clubs are a nightmare to deal with, because when they want your players, they're not prepared to pay much money at all, and then they want to fucking fleece you when they're selling when they're trying to sell to you. So it's difficult to do business with them. Look, ultimately, I think 50 or 60 million euros would probably get Anana. I think Mignan could be more like 70 to 80 million euros. It's going to be tricky. Like David Raya, Ryan in the chat saying David Raya had agreed, obviously, personal terms with Spurs, but they weren't prepared to pay Brentford 40 mil. I don't think Chelsea will pay Brentford 40 million either. And David Raya isn't really an improvement on what we've got. It's more of a sideways move. It's kind of just much of the same.
I was going to say, I don't think Raya is like a long-term goalkeeper at Chelsea, in my opinion. I don't know. I would agree on that. For me, Mignan's obviously would be my favourite to get, but ultimately, I think that's going to prove very difficult. And look, we're going to have to bring in a goalkeeper regardless to replace Mendy, unless the plan is to use Slonina as a number 2. But I would have thought at 18 years of age, it would have been more beneficial for him to go and play some senior football somewhere. So, look, I fully appreciate the points in the chat that, every top team has got a world-class goalkeeper, pretty much. Courtois at Madrid, Alisson, Ederson, etc. So I fully understand that, we need a new goalkeeper. But my point isn't that we don't need a new goalkeeper. My point is that if we have to go with Kepa for one more season, it's not going to be the end of the world. It's not the end of the world, yeah.
No, it really isn't. And do you know what? He could prove more people wrong. I think he proved a lot of people wrong last season, including myself. I didn't expect him to perform that well. And yes, there were mistakes in him, but each time he made mistakes, he responded pretty well. But there's not that many good goalkeepers knocking about. And so,
but you know what? Honestly, because of how shit we were up at the other end of the pitch in terms of goal scoring and how we just couldn't score to save our lives, we honestly would have been sitting in a very different place with Kepa right now if we had actually scored more goals, because we would have won more games as well. So that is just what people forget. And that is why people are so quick to, critique Kepa. And fair enough. I understand he isn't faultless. I get he makes mistakes. But the reason people were so quick to turn, their head towards Kepa was just because of, how shit we were up front in attack. And that's because it was just so outbalanced, how much we conceded as opposed to, how much we scored. But if we'd literally scored the most simple of chances, we would have been sitting in a very different place with Kepa. And I assure you, people wouldn't have been so pushy towards signing a new goalkeeper right now in this transfer window.
Yeah, we were 30 to 40 goals short last season. That's why we finished where we finished, because we had 38 goals. We're 30, 40 goals short. And, that's ultimately why, we finished where we were. The problem's not, the goalkeeper situation needs addressing, but it's not, as I said, it's not the reason as to why we performed so shit on the pitch last season. It's not. In fact, it's probably at the bottom of the list of reasons why we were so shit last year. That's the situation. And Kepa's not at fault for where we finished in the league. But I honestly don't expect, with a new goalkeeper, I don't really expect anything to happen until after pre-season, unless something something comes up that we weren't expecting, sort of thing. I would expect Kepa to be assessed by Pochettino in pre-season. And then after pre-season is maybe when we see something different happen. I don't see this as being something that's imminently going to be fixed. But ultimately, you know, players like Jan Oblak, massive release clause. It's going to be virtually impossible to get him out of Atletico Madrid. Manyan, tough. Anana, probably the easiest of the lot. Mamavashvili, the Georgian keeper at Valencia, yeah, decent. But again, would he be coming in as a one, or would he be coming in as like a kind of as competition? It's difficult. It's difficult to tell. But yeah, a new goalkeeper is needed. But let's see what happens in pre-season. Poch will assess Kepa, make his own mind up. But I wouldn't be at all surprised if we get to the first get there of the season against Liverpool and Kepa's in goal. That really wouldn't surprise me at all. But let's wait and see what happens with him. But let's move away from goalkeepers and let's move on to midfield. Before we get to Moises Caicedo, let's quickly talk about who am I looking for? Let's talk about Frank Kessie potentially. Now, there's been links from Spain, from Relevo, pretty reliable outlet out in Spain, that Mauricio Pochettino really likes Frank Kessie and he's on Chelsea's midfield list. Al Ali in Saudi plans to make Kessie an offer. Kessie doesn't want to leave, but Barca can raise money with his sale. The departure of Kovacic, Pochettino believes Kessie could adapt very well to the midfield. Now, just quickly before we get into Kessie in a bit more detail, obviously Caicedo is the main target. Do you believe that we need more than just Caicedo? We need another one?
Oh, I mean, yeah, ideally, yeah, because at the end of the day, when we look at our midfield at the moment, who's left, really? Like, we've
Gallagher,
got Enzo and Gallagher.
And then Chukwuemeka, Cassidy and Santos.
Yeah, and of course, you know, the last kind of few names you mentioned there are also not, you know, guaranteed first team players for next season. So I think from that aspect, yes, just because then we risk having that depth as well. And it also allows for a little bit more freedom in the midfield as well. But for me, like, I know we're going to talk about him, and I've said this a million times, but I just want Caicedo signed and in a Chelsea shirt as soon as possible. But yeah, I think with Pochettino, what he's doing, and he's obviously looking across, I'm now kind of talking myself into the mindset, you know, trust Pochettino and trust that he knows what's best for the team at the moment. How old is Kessie, by the way?
I think Kessie's like 26. Let me have a quick look. I'm pretty sure Kessie's 26. I'm just going to double check that. So look, it ticks like people's experience box.
Exactly. That's what I was about to say.
He's 26.
And of course, you know, still played in a competitive league, like he is, and he's played a lot of games as well. He's got that under his sleeve as well. So if we are talking about experience and you're looking to kind of balance out the ages across, you know, having kind of him in midfield as well could, you know, be a very good, you know, starting point for exerting experience there as well, if you like to call it, especially because we are going to look to have a very young midfield in the likes of Enzo, and obviously Caicedo is a young player himself as well. So if you are looking to, you know, balance out the books, if that's what you want to call it, then yeah, that's a great addition to have. But yeah, like I said, I think I would be a little bit worried if we just stuck with Caicedo. But at the end of the day, obviously are we still in talks with Lavia? Is that a long gone thing?
There's interest, but like that seems to Liverpool and Arsenal
seems to have died down.
It seems to have died down a little bit. Liverpool seems to be. I think Liverpool and Arsenal probably ahead of us, but again, it's hard to tell. Look, I think Kessie's a decent midfield player. Obviously, a Serie A winner with AC Milan. He's a La Liga winner with Barcelona. He has got big game experience. He definitely be good. He'd certainly do a job. I don't know what sort of transfer fee we're looking at here, but ultimately, you look at the options we've got in midfield, and like, you know, there's obviously Kefram Thuram, who's probably going to go to Liverpool. You've got Manu Kone at Mönchengladbach in Germany. You've got Lavia, who I don't think we're going to go with. Someone's saying Sangari in the chat. He signed a new 5-year contract at PSV Eindhoven last year, I think, so probably not going to happen. Polinia again from Fulham. There's been no real links with him at all. I wouldn't be surprised if West Ham, once they sell Declan Rice to Arsenal, make a move for Polinia. I don't know what the fee for Kessie would be, but ultimately, look, I actually think Kessie would be, he would actually be all right. Look, would it be my first choice? Probably not, but he's a bit more of a, I don't want to say he's like for like with Kovacic, but is a bit more of a Kovacic replacement, I would say. Just very quickly, whilst we were on goalkeepers, so I know someone was talking about Livakovic, the Croatian keeper. Fiorentina have bid €6 million plus add-ons for him, so looks like he could potentially be heading there. But there are other clubs in talks as well. But yeah, Kessie, look, 26 years of age, experience, of course, but again, it depends like what sort of a role he's going to have in the team. Is the pivot going to be Caicedo and Enzo, and Kessie's just going to be a rotation? Are we going to go over 3? In which case Kessie could play a bit more of an advanced role. It just depends what the plans are. I mean, if he likes Kessie, it doesn't necessarily mean anything. Like, we like loads of things. Like I don't know, I like Ferrari, doesn't mean I'm going to get one. You know, just like, so, you know, he likes Kessie, great. You know, like it doesn't. He's on the list. These lists, I swear, these lists must be like have so like 15, 20 fucking names on them. Like I don't know how much it really means, but we do need depth in the midfield. But then there's also an argument that, do you not think that because we're going down this route now with younger players, with your likes of your Caicedos, Chukwuemeka's and Santos's, that at some point we have to back what we're doing and just give these guys a chance? Or do you still think it's too early?
Oh yeah, definitely. Especially like the likes of Chukwuemeka. Like, why this guy did not get more playing time last season, I will never know. You know, that's the thing that we do at Chelsea, is that even now when we're bringing in all these kind of young, rising sort of potential players, is that, you know, they'll walk through the door and then they'll barely get the glimpses of the pitch, even though they are first team players, and you know that's that they'll be sitting on the bench or whatnot, and that's the kind of thing that we have to undo, you know, as a club, as a team, as manager, well, as a manager as well, is the fact that, you know, you're going to bring in these young players, but you got to play them as well equally. You know, Chukwuemeka, yeah, okay, he doesn't seem like someone that is going to be off the bat the best midfielder in the world, but you know, he's got something to build on, and he's already showed very, you know, promising aspects of his game as well. And arguably, he was a lot better than, you know, a lot of his other more experienced teammates. So, yeah, I'm not arguing that he is someone that should be a regular starter immediately. But my point is exactly what you're saying, is we've got to stop like bringing in these young players and then just not, you know, barring them of any kinds of hopes to make the starting lineups, or to just come on with like 5 minutes to go at the end of a very dry 1-1 game or something. You know, that's just not how we should be proceeding. And I mean, I trust that obviously, because Pochettino has a good, you know, repertoire with dealing with young players and improving them, etc., that he might exert a lot more belief and you know, improve them respectively as well. So yeah, like you said, we can't really continue doing what we have done in the past season. And yeah, you can put that down on managers that didn't have a clue what they were doing and relied on, again, experience. Like, that's just coming up so much. It seems that, you know, players that are a little bit older with more experience will get picked over the younger players. And I understand that obviously last season, you would argue, wasn't a season to gamble. But at the end of the day, it was, because it was so shit and there was just nothing, you know, nothing to play for anymore at the end. And these youngsters still didn't even see the light of day on the pitch.
No, I think it's clear that yes, you do need quality and stuff. We have got quality, obviously not right now. I mean, yeah, right now on the books there is quality. We obviously need more quality in there, but there does come a point at some stage where, you know, if you're signing all these young players, you've kind of got to put your money where your mouth is and back what you're doing. You know, there's no point just accumulating all these great young talents and not doing anything with them. I'm not saying that's what we're doing, but I don't want us to be in a situation where it looks like we might be going down that route where we're just accumulating a load of youngsters and a load of young talent to try and sell them on for profit. The whole point is that we're trying to go down this route where we find these good young players before other clubs do and before they become a 50, 60, 70 plus £1 million players. So we are going to have to back ourselves at some point that we believe in what we're doing. Otherwise, what is the point in doing it? The whole point is to get these guys ready to play in the first team. And I get that, you know, you need experienced players around that. But ultimately, last season with a midfield that consisted of the likes of Kovacic and you know, Loftus-Cheek, experienced players. Obviously, Kante was in there for a bit as well. Like, we were shit. So how can anyone possibly say that playing Chukwuemeka on a regular basis or Andre Santos on a regular basis, like, is going to be any worse than what we saw in midfield last season. I don't believe you can make that argument. So it's look, it's opinions. It's going to be it's tricky, but we've got a plan. And there's Zakaria as well. I forgot about him, but look, we've got a clear plan. We have to start believing in our plan at some point. So I don't know if that's necessarily this summer or it will be next season, but we have to start believing in the plan. And people aren't going to like it because people love established names. They like big names because it makes them feel better. It makes them feel more comfortable. They like making they like the unknown. They don't like the unknown. They don't like change. Like, this is a different Chelsea now. This is not what Chelsea was like under Roman. We're going in a different direction. People don't like change. It's going to get a little bit of getting used to. And ultimately, this is not just for the last 4 or 5 years. We've been on a steady decline, and a few cups have papered over kind of how shit we've been. So I think it is time for a new approach. We've tried spending big money on established names. Hasn't served us well. There's a long list of players that have been signed for big money with massive reputations that have been utter dog shit. So, for people to still be calling for us to go down that route doesn't make any sense to me at all. So yeah, look, Kessie, I like him. I think he's decent. Ultimately, if Pochettino wants him and he thinks he's good and he can make it work, let's do it. I think that's the kind of the way we've got to think. Yeah, we can have our opinions on players, but ultimately, the manager's being bought in. We need to back the manager, get behind him, believe in what he's doing, trust him, and see where that takes us. And until there's a reason not to trust him, we just have to go with what he thinks. And if he thinks that Frank Kessie is right for his team and right for the system that he wants to play, and he can play a part of getting Chelsea back to being successful, then that's what we need to do. So yeah, that's basically my thoughts on Frank Kessie and the midfield. Before we move on to a more coherent argument, there have been Datra didn't get enough minutes and instead they play people out of position. There's also that we've massively missed profile players in the past as well, not playing players in their correct positions. And I'm not referring to Kai Havertz, I'm just referring to other players in general. We haven't necessarily done that all the time. We've not given young players enough minutes consistency-wise either. Established names equal, maybe so. But yeah, guys, I haven't mentioned it today, 47 minutes in. Make sure you smash the likes on the stream. We've got pretty much 200 of us locked in across both channels, people. So make sure you smash the likes, get Chelsea Fan TV up and over 100 likes. Let's get my channel to at least 50, guys. We're only on 37 with 70 of us locked in. So that's piss poor. So we need to improve on that, guys. So make sure you get the likes up. It's free. It takes seconds and it massively helps out. If it didn't help out, I wouldn't keep banging on about it. So it does really help out. And I would massively appreciate it if you could do that. So let's get this up to 50 likes plus on my channel. And guys, if you haven't subscribed to Chelsea Fan TV or myself, then make sure you do, people. Chelsea Fan TV, we're on the road to 200k, hopefully before the season starts. And myself, looking to hit 4,000 before the season starts. We're about 500 short of that. So every new subscriber would be a massive bonus. Links to both channels are now in the chat. So please make sure that you do that, guys. It would be greatly appreciated. And, you tune in, you take part, you're good at what you're doing here. So yeah, a little click of the subscribe button and a little click of the like button is gonna be really beneficial and would be massively appreciated. Let's move on to Moises Caicedo then. Obviously, Chelsea fans kind of concerned that we could maybe miss out. There's always that possibility that we could miss out. Fabrizio Romano exclusively revealing this morning that Chelsea are set to open talks with Brighton for Caicedo, with negotiations starting in the next 24 to 48 hours. Personal terms, not an issue. Chelsea prepared to attack the deal now. It's not going to be never easy or fast negotiations with Brighton. Chelsea are obviously on the situation. But then I've seen something saying, and it's a little, maybe a slight concern, is that, I don't know, apparently it's from Sky Sports News, but it's been reported by Transfer News Live, but supposedly Manchester United are going to make an approach for Moises Caicedo within the next week. Now, that could potentially be a bit of a worry. United, we don't know if they're bluffing or what they're doing. But are you concerned that other clubs might come in, and if we don't kind of act fast and get this wrapped up as quickly as possible, if a Champions League playing team came in, he could potentially be going there?
Yeah, but Champions League football just for next season. We'll be back there as well. But no, I get your point. I mean, it's just hard to get happy about any like incoming transfers when they're not set in stone yet. Like we've seen how many times, oh yeah, this player is basically a blue and he's not the next day. So on that front, that's why I'm just so like just stressed out about this Caicedo situation. Although I'm not actually worried about Manchester United. I think that is a complete bluff on their end. I think what they're trying to do is just so let me like just kind of make this make sense. So they put in 3 bids for Mason Mount. They reject the final one, and then they decide to then drop interest in Mason Mount, who they've been pursuing since, the start 3 weeks back, to then go and pursue a more expensive midfielder in Caicedo, a player that has basically expressed individual desire to go to Chelsea as well, where terms have basically been agreed and we seem to be in the race, if you want to say that. Why and how does that make sense is what I'm trying to get at. Like, how are you serious about this if money is your problem? Unless you think Caicedo is a better midfielder than Mason Mount, and that the fee that you would pay for Caicedo totally is actually worth. That's the thing, though. But if you're so adamant that you want Mason Mount as part of your plans, you reject that final bid, even though it's a really small. We're talking a minuscule difference in what they offered and what we countered with. To then say that you've dropped interest and go and pursue Caicedo when you don't actually have that much money to spend at once on a player anyway, it just doesn't quite sit right with me. Especially when, like I said, Caicedo seems to be, well, at least that's what the media is telling us and what we are led to believe, is that Caicedo is a lot more interested in a move to Chelsea than Manchester United. I'm pretty sure, there was a photo of him in a Chelsea shirt once somewhere.
Yeah,
Champions League football.
I think.
Yeah, and for me, Champions League football for him, well, I mean, every player is different. Of course, Champions League football is going to be, a kind of a glorious thing for any player, and is going to attract any sort of player, especially one that has had a fantastic season in the Prem and hasn't, seen the glimpses of European football. Of course, that's going to look good to a young player. But at the end of the day, you got to look in the long run. We just won it 2 years ago. We have been consistently competing in Europe. This is obviously just one season. And if he believes in the project that, we are developing and we are working towards, then he should just be smart with it and choose Chelsea. No bias there at all. But
what I would
I'm
say
just saying,
is that people that bang on about experience, right, are then desperate to get Caicedo when Caicedo's 21 and he's played less than 50 games for Brighton. So that kind of
the sample size, there you go. The sample size
that sort of cancels out a lot of people's. We need to sign experienced players, but then everyone's on the Caicedo bandwagon. When all right, he's a very good player. He's 20, but he's 21 and he's played less than 50 games for Brighton. But yet, when we sign other players, people are banging on about experience. But Caicedo has got less than 50 Premier League games, which is not really a great deal of experience. His rise has been rapid, so it's a little bit hypocritical when people bang on about experience and then they bang up for this Caicedo signing. So it's a little bit, it's a bit hypocritical from my point of view. But look, United coming in, it's always a bit of a worry when other clubs are sniffing about. And from Brighton's perspective, they'll want more clubs to come in. They'll want a bidding war to try and drive the price up. That's kind of how it works. You never really want one suitor for a player and
they can afford to do that. Yeah,
of course they can. I mean, look, there is a gentleman's agreement in place, I think, with Caicedo that obviously if an amount comes in believed to be sort of 85 million pounds, that he will be allowed to leave the club. But obviously Brighton are going to drive a hard bargain. It's going to come down to payment structure. They're going to want a large amount of that money up front with less of it over installments and whatnot. And they want it to be guaranteed up front quickly. So maybe 70 odd million. They might want the 80 million paid over a year and a half rather than 3 years or something, which might be on the table. But yeah, look, I think until it's done, you can be confident about things, but until it's done and they're kind of holding the shirt, there's always a little bit of a worry, because we've been down this road a lot of times a lot of times before in terms of like I thought Agate was done.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say.
We thought Rafinha was coming. We thought that we were going to get Jules Koundé. There's been a few very recently where we thought we were going to get the players and then we didn't. And people kind of get a little bit carried away with personal terms being agreed. Personal terms is the easy part. A player can agree personal terms with more than one club. Like that's not unheard of. That's quite a normal thing. And then obviously they'll kind of pick and choose where they want to go. Caicedo more than happy to come to Chelsea for sure, but also if other clubs suddenly came in, it then gives him a decision to make. I'm not saying that he wouldn't pick us over Man United if their interest was serious, but you're running a big risk if you're backing him to pick you over other clubs. When we're the only club in the race at this point in time, you would fancy yourself in a one-horse race. But I just don't think you want to take the risk when you've got when you're clearly in the driving seat at this point in time. You don't want to take the risk and allow other parties to come into the race, because yes, he's only 21, and yes, we say that we're going to be back in the Champions League the following year. There's no guarantees of that. We'd like to think that, and we think we're good enough to. But ultimately, the Premier League's got a lot stronger. Newcastle aren't fucking about. Villa are very good. Brighton are decent as well. There's going to be 5 spaces next season, but the Premier League's really strong, and there's no guarantee we even come in the top 5. So, I still appreciate that players are taking a slight gamble by choosing Chelsea and thinking that they're going to be back in the Champions League next season. I mean, I'd like to think we are, and as fans, we all think we will be, but there's kind of no guarantee of that. I mean, do you think? I mean, I obviously think he would choose us, but do you think there's a worry that if United came in or if someone else came in, then it there's a chance we could miss out, which would be disastrous?
I mean, there's always a chance we can miss out. I'd be stupid and delusional to think not. And I was just thinking while you were speaking, imagine a scenario where Mount stays at Chelsea, Caicedo goes to Man United. Don't you think that then fingers are going to start pointing towards, obviously, us as negotiators in this window, and think, well, what did we actually do? Because we wanted Caicedo back in January. Obviously, we want him now. We've been pursuing it for a while. Caicedo has been a target at the top 3 targets, for a while. It's not just that we've woken up this morning and gone, oh yeah, Caicedo played really well this season, let's have him. It's been a long time kind of coming, and obviously equally Mason Mount situation as well. This is now dragging on for about 3.5 weeks, pushing it to a month, and it seems that obviously the final bid is still there, right? Both clubs are going to be meeting up in person to discuss that. But my fear is what happens if what I just said happens. Mason Mount stays because we as a Chelsea Football Club decided that we do want to push for more, and then actually it's better that he stays at Chelsea for another season and walks out for free next season because we weren't willing to take that previous bid there. And then even worse, on top of that, to make the wound even bigger, they get Caicedo and we miss out on that. What do you think was going to happen then?
I don't really know. Look, I'd like to sit here and say that I don't think we will miss out on Caicedo, but it's clear that the bid that goes in is going to have to be pretty much bang on what Brighton want, or it's got to be very close. I think the chance of them accepting the first bid are very slim. Very rarely, particularly of deals of this magnitude, does a first bid get accepted. You don't want to go in too high because that's not a good negotiating position to be in, because you run the risk of kind of getting ripped off. But at the same time, we don't want this to be dragging out, because it seems to take fucking ages to prepare a bid. So, we don't want a bid to go in and it's rejected. And then we have to wait another week for the next bid to go in. We need this first bid has got to be pretty much bang on the money, or within a few million, or it's just got to be the bid and they're just going to accept it. There is a small chance that maybe that does happen, but there's always a worry that we could miss out. And whilst it all feels a bit too comfortable at this point in time. We seem to be clearly at the front of the queue. Personal terms, we agree with the player. We're preparing to approach Brighton. I always wonder why it takes so long to prepare a bid, because I know it's not as simple as pick the phone up, right, we're going to offer you this, here's the money. I'll just fucking get my phone out and do it on the old on the online banking transfer. I know it doesn't work like that, but like what are we doing? Like, no, not what are we doing? What just happens in football where like it takes so long to prepare a bid? Obviously, it's more money than any of us could ever imagine being involved with, but like surely there must be loads of admin and loads of like documents and papers and shit that have to be prepared, but that might take a while. But I do always wonder why it takes so long to put a bid in. Like, you're preparing a bid. What are we waiting for, like, the money to come through from somewhere else? Like, I don't really understand why it takes so long. But I mean, in terms of Caicedo, like, the news we've got is that, you know, a bid is imminent. It was meant to be last week. It didn't happen. So yeah, there's not really much more to go on than that. We just have to trust the people in charge. And look, to be fair, they got the Enzo deal done, in fairness to them. So like these guys can do a good deal. So hope we just have to trust them with Caicedo. But it's I do worry a little bit on that front though, that it could be difficult.
We just can't get happy about anything, man.
Where's Belvedere? Is that in France or something?
Wait, is that not Serbia? Wait.
Serbia?
No,
that's
wait.
Belgrade.
No, that's Belgrade. That was so bad.
Where's Belvedere? Is it France?
Isn't that like a vodka?
No, that's Belvedere. It's Kent. Oh,
that's so bad for me.
That's really embarrassing.
Sipping my tea.
It's a vodka, Belvedere.
It is vodka. I told you, it is vodka. That's the more...
It is, but it's also a place in Kent.
Know what it is.
I thought it was like no disrespect to Kent. I thought it was like an exotic location. Obviously not. There we go. Near Dartford. There. No, I know what that is.
Oh dear.
Yeah. Havertz is done. Tonali's done, and Maddison to Spurs is done as well. But yeah, let's move on to Mason Mount briefly, because how could we possibly not mention that for the fucking 100th time? But
millionth time.
Where is it? This one, I think it is. Yeah, right. United and Chelsea set to make final decision on Mason Mount, as direct contacts will take place within 24 hours. Understand will be face to face, and United will be clear once again they want to get it done for 55 million. Like I was saying this yesterday, someone's going to look really stupid because United have said they're walking away from the deal, but they haven't walked away, and then Chelsea have rejected this bid. And then if they then go back and accept it, then someone's going to look really fucking stupid. So like it could be us or it could be United. I mean, look, I think Chelsea, for me personally, like have played this well in terms of the fact that through other sales, for the likes of Kai Havertz going to Arsenal, all the Saudi sales and all that stuff, that actually we don't need to sell Mason Mount for financial reasons. So, 55 million quid. My only issue would be is, what would be his motivation to play for Chelsea next season if he ends up staying? Is he going to be in the right mindset to play? What's his reception from the fans going to be like? He'd have to communicate, put out some form of communication before the season started if he ends up staying. And then we've obviously got the situation where if he does stay, do we run the risk of missing out on 60 million quid in the hope that maybe that we can persuade him to sign a new deal at some point during next season? Can we get Pochettino to convince him? Will he ever change a heart, sort of thing? I mean, I know that you want him to stay. I'd like him to stay as well. But what do you think we can take that gamble of trying to convince him and missing out on potentially 55, 60 million pounds?
Couldn't imagine anything worse if we do. Like, I honestly, I'm so over this whole Mason Mount saga. It's just so boring to me. I'm just so fed up with it. And honestly, let's just take the money and just get it over and done with. It doesn't even matter if we don't even maximize that money anymore. Money is money at the end of the day. It's better than free, like walking out for free next season. And walking out on free next season, one thing is worse than that, and that is staying at Chelsea as well for the whole season next season as well.
He doesn't want to be here, yeah.
Well, that's just, but also how I imagine it, if Mason Mount is anywhere near any starting lineup next season, it's going to be like a rotten apple in the middle of on the pitch or just in the squad ever. It sends out a bad message to the fans, the club, the principles and the values that the club has ever had. The new players, the new arrivals, those players that are fighting to get their, place in the starting lineup. Imagine Mason Mount, a player that expressed his desire to move on. We're never going to know the full story, and I'm not going to be stupid and look at surface level and just say that Mason Mount just woke up one day and said, I don't want to be here anymore. Probably happened over a longer period of time, yes, but like I said, for me, it's just gotten to a situation where we can't have Mason Mount stay. Ain't no way. That is why I'm accepting any money now that comes through, because for me, it's more important that we get him out the door and obviously make some money. At the end of the day, we're not going to sell him for pennies either. I get why the club is pushing for it. I mean, when you see the deal that we had for Havertz to Arsenal, of course you're going to push for Mason Mount being homegrown and everything. We want to make money off our homegrown players, and at the end of the day, he's going off to a rival. We can afford to be perhaps in a place where we do push for more money. But for me, if Mason Mount ever makes a starting lineup at Chelsea again, it's just going to be the most foul thing ever. Who is for that? Which fan is going to be happy to welcome Mason Mount, especially after how silent he has been throughout the whole thing? Here we are, us Chelsea fans are sitting here trying to unfold this whole drama that has happened with Mason Mount, and yet he's just sitting silently, just saying nothing, just saying at an F1 when he was at an F1 event, whatever, he just said something like, oh, well, we'll see what happens. But his head was facing down on the last day of the Prem. We were there at Newcastle, we applauded Aspilicueta, Kovar, Loftus-Cheek, Kante, a few others that we knew could potentially be saying goodbye, but Mason Mount was just so awfully quiet that it just makes me think at the end of the day, you at least owe it to us to just be honest about the situation. And that's how we stand. If it's any other player, it's a little bit more different. But our proper Chelsea, our Mason Mount are here from day one. And for me, what I'm most disappointed about with the whole situation is that for me, it was always a different priority with Mason Mount. Players come and go, but this is a player that we envision to lead Chelsea to future years of success, as a Chelsea captain one day, potentially. We're talking about that. And now when you look at the situation that we find ourselves in, had you told me back last year that I would be sitting here having this conversation with you saying that Mason Mount needs to walk out the door, I would have told you, you're crazy. Ain't no way. That is just how quickly things have turned. And if a player like Mason Mount doesn't believe that, this is a project that we will be successful with in years to come, then who the hell will, I don't know. For me, I get that he was underappreciated. I get that he looked over to, his teammates at training who are getting double what he's getting, and, he deserved more. But for me, it was always more important for him to, pull his socks up, show the club and the fans that he's willing and he's trying to turn things around, have your head in the game, show that this is why you deserve. You're young, you're literally yet to win trophies. Well, we hope that you would be at Chelsea. And for me, that's just why I turned so negatively towards Mason Mount. And I just feel like the sooner the better, because frankly, we want players that are here to stay. This is a future project where players are locked into 6, 7, 8 years. And frankly, the standards are so low at Chelsea at the moment that the least you need to have is an attitude and a desire to be at Chelsea. So that's literally where it starts. And Mason Mount already doesn't tick that box. So, why should we be begging for you to stay if you've made it so clear that, But I do feel like the media has twisted and turned things. And I know that there is a bigger truth to this. Some people are saying that he never wanted to leave in the first place, but
I'm not sure. I don't know if he did though. Want to look again? We don't know what's going to happen. In terms, we don't know what's happened between him and the club. We might never find out what's happened between him and the club. I think the biggest problem with this situation has been that there's been no clarity from either side. There's been no clarity from the club, and there's been no clarity from Mount's side either. And I don't think that he would. I don't believe. I mean, this might be naive, and I could be totally wrong here, but I don't believe that he'd actually want to leave the club. The way I would look at it is that, the way, if you want someone to stay, offering a 1-year contract extension in February is not exactly screaming to me as a player, oh, we really want you to stay, we really appreciate you. That screams to me that, oh, they just want to protect my value, and then we're going to see what happens in a year's time and just boot the problem a year down the line. That's offering a 1-year contract is disrespectful. It's not dealing with the situation. It's, it doesn't show that you want him to stay. Now, I'm not saying that him and his representatives on his side have behaved perfectly. We've got no idea. But that's poor from the club to have only offered a 1-year extension. It's also poor from the club to have gone back on what was agreed on before the World Cup in principle verbally, to then get to January after the World Cup and that offer's been changed. You can't operate as a football club like that. So those two things are shit from the club. But the other things that we don't know is what Mount's been demanding. We don't know what he's like. We don't know what the situation is. Yes, it was reported back in March that talks would pick up again in the summer. I don't know if those talks have picked up or not. But you also have to appreciate, this is not me like saying that he's not done anything wrong, but you have to appreciate that if you've got a year left on your contract and you've been offered fuck all since February, you've got to analyse and assess your career options. Like that's just a normal thing to do, is to assess your career options. If you've got a year left on your contract and you've been offered nothing by the club since February, so you do have to assess your options. But I just feel that I don't know his family, I don't know his dad, I don't know his agent.
Well, apparently his dad is a Man United fan. Apparently,
maybe. I mean, I don't know where that comes from, but maybe. But I just feel that I think he's received some really shit advice from the people around him. I think the advice he's received has been quite poor. I don't know who's advising him. I don't know what that level of advice has been, but I do feel that I think he's been advised badly, and the whole situation is just one massive mess. But ultimately, we're going to get a decision one way or the other. But we need some communication. But I do think that if he leaves, I don't think we'll ever hear, well, certainly not for the next few years, what the reasoning was for him leaving, and kind of what the reasoning was behind the whole mess. Because we've seen loads of contracts being extended at Chelsea. James, Broja, Chilwell, Chalobah, Silva. Like, these contracts done easy, no issues. Well, I don't understand why this one, which should be the easiest one to do, has caused such a massive problem. There's obviously fault from both sides. It's never just one side's fault.
Oh yeah,
it's going to take both. It takes two parties to be involved. But yeah, look, it is a tiresome saga. I'd like him to stay, of course, but ultimately, whatever the decision is, we just need to move on from it, because, as you say, it is boring. It's kind of like it's taken up a lot of effort and energy on the club's behalf. And for Pochettino starting work on Saturday and the build up to pre-season, we can't afford to have this hanging over us any longer. It needs one way or another. We've got a new manager coming in. We've got a massive season ahead of us. We can't afford any distractions for the preparations, and constantly being asked, is Mount staying? Is he not staying? Is not going to be helpful for our preparations for the new season. So hopefully this week, we need it this week. We have to see Lewis taking some heat there. Look, I think it just needs,
that's good.
It just needs to be resolved. Like, this week, I don't care what the outcome is. Obviously, I've got my thoughts, what I prefer. Resolve it this week. Do what you need to do. If we end up looking stupid having to accept a bid we rejected, so be it. But yeah, it is a boring conversation. It really is.
But the thing is, though, I just quickly, one more thing. I swear what we offered him, like one of the contracts that we offered him, I think there weren't many offers that we made, but it's similar to what Man United are offering. So that's for me where it was a little bit like, what?
And people say it's money. I think he's probably going to earn, if he goes to United, I would expect the contract would be similar to what he would have earned at Chelsea. I don't look at it as like, oh, it'd be like 100. It'd be like 100K at Chelsea, and he'd get a and he'd be getting 200 at United. I don't see it like that. I don't think it's just money. Of course, money is going to play a part, and money. Look, these are short careers. You've got to maximize your earning potential, of course. But yeah, I don't know. I really don't know. It's a tricky one, really. It's a shame, but we need the answer one way or another. We need the answer, because
sure.
As you say, it is massively boring, the Mount thing. But hopefully we'll get it this week. This week is running out of time though, so we'd like, hopefully in the next couple of days we might get something. But yeah, let's wait and see on that front. Guys, if you've got any questions in the chat, make sure just quickly bang them in. Last few minutes, get through some questions. If you've got anything you want answering, very briefly, Nina, thoughts on his father is the problem. I would potentially agree on that, although I don't really have any evidence to suggest that. Quickly, very lastly, for like last couple minutes, what are your guys? By the way, there's almost 300 of us locked in across both channels now, so keep hitting the like buttons and keep subscribing to both channels if you haven't done so already. What was I going to bring up?
You asked me thoughts on someone. But
this Callum Hudson-Odoi. AC Milan, Fulham, and Forest registered interest in signing Callum Hudson-Odoi, who plans to reject the Saudi league. Chelsea could sell for around £15 million. Thoughts on Callum? 15 million quid, pretty fair.
How much?
15.
15.
Yeah, not 50.
No, that's why I was like, what? Because I couldn't quite read it there. I mean, that's looking like a little reunion there, little Chelsea reunion. With his ex-teammates Giroud, Tomori. Oh, my voice just broke, Tomori.
Oh.
I think I would see. I always stand differently with Callum Hudson-Odoi, because I think he doesn't have a place, in Chelsea for me anymore. But if we can make 15 mil off, I'd personally be happy with that. I'm not dwelling on it too much, to be honest with you. I rate him. He was a good player. Had a good attitude when he played for us as well. I think that little partnership with someone's literally just said it in the comments, Loftus-Cheek, I think it could be really good. I mean, obviously we saw glimpses of that, I think, when we obviously had a very young squad at the time as well, when Hudson-Odoi played for us as well. I think he was skilled, gifted, and I think they would probably have a lot more success together there in that league than in the Prem now, and I think that they can actually be appreciated.
Is that he's still 22?
Yeah, that's actually crazy to think how young he was when he played for us as well. And we looked at him at the time and thought he would be one of the more promising prospects.
He was good for us. And I know people don't think he's that good, but he was really good for us. He was, like, there's no denying it. He was great. He played well. He's a talented boy. Again, another one set back by that ruptured Achilles injury, same injury as Ruben. And then he's not really rediscovered. He's not really rediscovered his form, unfortunately. So it's kind of just the way it goes. But I think 15 million could be good for him. He's young enough to go and rebuild his career somewhere, whether it's AC Milan, whether it's Fulham, Forest, whatever it is, a Premier League team. I like him as a player. I think there's a lot of ability there. Yes, his confidence has probably been knocked by the injury, by obviously not getting the most amount of game time on his loan at Bayer Leverkusen. But I think, look, we could. I mean, it's mad that I think we did have an offer of about 50. I think it was even 70 million quid for him from Bayern about 3 or 4 years ago, which we turned down. He obviously signed a new 5-year contract, 150k a week. Is that value for money? Perhaps you could say not, given how it's worked out. But at the time, he wanted to stay. And when Tuchel came in, he was playing quite regularly. Tuchel really liked him, and he was playing well. And then obviously he come on against Southampton away as a sub, and then he got subbed off as well. So that's obviously not great. But yeah, look, obviously I would wish him all the best when if he goes. And yeah, he's young enough to rebuild his career and still have a very, very good career in the game. There's no two ways about it. What's he done to say he's better than Pulisic? I don't think there's much in it, to be honest. Really.
And yeah, if we're talking about experience as well, if we're defining it with kind of playing in different leagues as well. There you go. You're 22 and you're about to play in another league as well, competitive league as well. So yeah, quite good on him. Good for him.
Pulisic news, AC Milan are interested. Chelsea want between 25 and 30 million for him, but AC Milan, obviously being stingy Italian club, only want to pay 15. So I'm not really sure where we're going there. Yeah, he's like Callum's last year of the contract, so I think it's a sale. If he goes on loan, he'd have to sign a new contract, and I can't see him getting a new contract at all. So yeah, obviously wish him all the best when he does go. It'll be a decent chunk of money back in, and again, pure profit on the books because he's come through the academy. So yeah, a nice bit of cash back in the bank for that one. But yeah, guys, I think unless any last minute news has come out whilst we've been discussing that, probably look to round this one out. Massive thank you to everyone for tuning in on my channel over on Chelsea Fan TV as well. Guys, make sure you subscribe to both channels, people. It's massively appreciated. So, it's not going to, it takes you seconds to do. I'll put both links to the channel in the chat. So if you could subscribe to both channels on the way out, that would be greatly appreciated. Keep smashing the likes on the streams as well, guys. Try and get Chelsea Fan TV 100, 150, whatever it's on. Guys, I'm on 58 likes on mine. Try and get this to 60 or 70 likes before we round this one out. But yeah, smash the likes on the way out. Subscribe to both channels. Guys, as well, make sure you subscribe to Nina. It's added in the description below. All you've got to do is just click on it, and that will take you there. And you might be lucky. You might be able to go for a Belvedere as well. So make sure you subscribe and see what happens. Could be a lucky day. But no, seriously, make sure you check her channel out. Loads of great stuff on there. It's added in the description. Guys, I'll be back again tomorrow with another daily transfer update. Let's see what news we've got in store for us. But yeah, thanks for your time as always, guys. As I said, smash the likes on the way out.
Pleasure.
Subscribe to both channels if you haven't done so already. Make sure you check out Nina's channel, and I'll catch you again tomorrow.